Oh, baby. All right. We got a super interesting guest today. We got Mr. Maxime Poulin of Ostiguy Gendron. He is the vice president at the Ostiguy Gendron commercial insurance broker. And I am very, very, very thrilled to have you on the podcast today. I would love to pick your brain. You guys have Ostiguy Gendron is a very good presence in the Quebec market. I know you have a presence in other provinces as well, which we'll get to. These are some questions that we have. But thank you so much for coming on today, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be more of a podcast today on insurance. So if you don't like insurance and you think it's boring, it's probably not going to be a podcast you're going to want to listen to. If you do like insurance, I think this is going to be a super interesting podcast for you. So for any Canadians or even Americans, insurance agents, stuff like that, I think you're going to learn a lot today. So I guess we'll start one of the first topics I want to talk about. So let's talk about you first. So how did you get started in insurance?
I was dreaming about it since I was that tall.
Okay.
Of course not. So I actually started at ING.
Okay.
Back in 2003 as an intern. So started there on Crémazie, did I was a clerk, intern, commercial underwriting. So I did that for a while. Then I went to CompuQuote.
Okay.
So on sales and training. And so that was pretty cool because it gave me really access to all the brokers across Canada because everyone is using CompuQuote, right?
Yeah.
So before it became applied. So that was fun because I was traveling. I was meeting all these brokers, seeing how they operate, seeing, the mergers, being part of that. So that was pretty cool. And then I wanted to be more involved with the brokers and the industry because when you're a provider, you're still involved, but business-wise, not that much sometimes. So that's how I ended up at AXA, business development there. So I was working for Richard Bertrand.
Yeah,
well.
Richard Bertrand.
Yeah. And Richard was used to work at TAM Info 2000, which is now applied, right?
Yeah.
So he was already familiar, with the tech side and all. So I think he had a soft spot for that, and then he hired me at AXA. AXA became Intact in 2011, and I was already working with a broker called Ostiguy Gendron, which were open to having new people and building their succession plan and all. And we became friends, and then I did the move in 2012.
In 2012, over to the broker side.
Yeah, the dark side. 2012. So 10 years ago.
Is that something I always get the feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, I always get the feeling that from the insurer side, they think it's a lot easier than it actually is to go out and get new business. Would you say that that's true? Like I find sometimes insurers, and you know what, I would be the exact same thing if I was an insurance company. If you have, for example, a contract with someone, you have expectations and you need to, a deal is a deal. But I find sometimes they're just like, we don't really care how you get the new business, which is what they should be like anyways. But I find sometimes they think it's easier than it actually is to go out and get new business. Did you ever find that when you were working on the insurance company side? What I'm basically saying is sometimes as a broker, I feel like I just want to ask them, hey guys, can you cut me just a little bit of slack? Please give me a bit of time. Give me some rope. That's sometimes how I feel.
I feel that I don't think that they think it's easy to go out there and find business. I think sometimes they're not sensitive enough to the fact that we have many relationships to manage. Mm-hmm. So all the insurers, they all want growth. Of course. They all want growth with you. They all want good business. They want to be profitable. And to manage all the expectations is not always easy. So obviously when you're one insurer and you're talking to your brokers, it's your perspective and that's normal. But to put yourself in their shoes and see that, there's a lot to manage, they're not that much business. So even though you're growing, feeding everyone at some point and keeping these relationships strong, there's a balance, and it's not always easy, I find.
Yeah. And for you guys, here actually before that, I have a question. So since you started working at Ostiguy Gendron in 2012, you said?
Yeah.
So 2012.
December
and so now,
2012. Yeah.
And now we're 2023. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I started around the same time, actually,
Okay.
working here at KBD.
Okay.
So we've been working in insurance for more or less, I've been about 10 years. What did you do as soon as you went over to Ostiguy Gendron? So when you started off there, and what do you do today? Like, has your position within Ostiguy Gendron, has it evolved over the years?
It did, because I became a partner in 2015, and we did a management buyout there along with 4 partners.
Okay.
And through the years, we bought back some partners. It did change, not that much, in a sense that one of my role was to help them grow through M&A. Since I was already involved in that on the insurer side at AXA and Intact, I knew the markets, I knew the players, I knew the brokers. So most of the deals that were done were existing relationships of mine, I would say. So when I moved, right away we made a deal on Jean-Paul Gaultier, which is a trucking focus brokerage that ended up being our trucking division. So we kept the name Jean-Paul Gaultier, trucking division of Ostiguy Gendron. So that was one of the first deals. So I was involved in, finding opportunities and then building a book of business. So I was a producer, and that's how I became a shareholder as well, flipping my book that I built before. Our CEO, GP, also came from a producer background. So for us, when we talk to commercial, because 90% of our business is commercial, of course, a lot of it is producer driven. So when we talk to producers, I mean, we've been there. I still manage a very significant book. So besides everything else, on a day-to-day basis, I do renewals, I talk to clients, I meet prospect. So it's our DNA, and that's what we do all day and every day. So that was always, from the start, that was always the idea also.
You strike me as a guy who's very good at the relationship side of the game. So like the schmoozing, go out for, have some nice wine, go out for dinner, and just to kind of be a good time with the clients. Like, would you say that? What's your style when it comes to being a producer? Because there's some producers that are get on the phone, cold call, strictly business. There's not as much schmoozing. They're just kind of straight to the point. And some people, like I like to schmooze a little bit. I like to take my time. I like to have a connection with the person that I'm speaking to. What would you say is your style?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the fun part of the business. It's not always fun, and it's not always easy for your spouse or partners or whatever to also understand that it's not, you have to go out. Yes, you're going to hockey, but you're not going with your buddies all the time, right?
Yeah.
You're going with people that, either insurers relationships or providers or clients or prospect. So I think it's not all that glamorous, but it's still pretty cool. I mean, we have nice lives when you look at people working in plant and stuff. So going through COVID, we're still hiring. So we're having a pretty good thing going on. Very resilient industry, I find also.
Yeah. So
to go back to your point, it's not so much, it's the schmoozing, yes, but I always had quite a large network. So it's important for me, and to maintain and entertain that network, whether it's personal, but then it becomes professional. And as you know, sometimes the line is kind of,
blurry.
And that's what I like. I like meeting people, spending time with people, whether it's clients or prospect or insurers or underwriters, or I think that's, at the end of the day, we're still a people's business.
Yep.
And that's what's great about it. So every day we meet and interact with great people, and that's what's driving me. So it could be, more PR, but it could be also just spending time with an underwriter that you want to know better because you have to place accounts with. So I think it's kind of a global thing or something.
And you get to see their point of view as well. That's like one of the first things that my old man taught me about, when you're dealing with underwriters. He would go up, he would take them for lunch, and he would say, what do you guys like to write? What do you want me to send to you? What's your appetite? As opposed to the other way around. Because sometimes brokers who don't have that many leads or who are perhaps not as good at kind of going and chasing business, they'll kind of go, hey, these are all the leads I have. I want you to take these. Whereas people need to realize, I find, especially commercial insurance, but home and car insurance, different games, kind of just a computer. Yeah. But for commercial insurance, it's more, what do you guys like to write? What's your appetite? Okay, I'm going to go out and get that, because a lot of times it's the most frustrating thing in the world. You guys are a bigger company, you have more access to more markets than KBD Insurance from a commercial insurance standpoint. It's very, very, very frustrating when I have an in with a client and I'm confident I'd be able to get it, but I don't have a market to place it. So it can get frustrating for me sometimes, but
it is. But I would say that when you're talking to a broker who writes 5 million of business, he's going to tell you that he doesn't have enough market.
Yeah.
The one that writes 25 million of business doesn't have enough market. When you get to 100 million of business, still not enough markets. So unless you're like the ABC brokers, it's always...
What's an ABC broker?
By international brokers.
Okay.
So Marsh, Aon,
Okay.
all the nationals, internationals. If you're not them, it's always, even though you're growing, at some point it's still hard to feed everyone and to have access to everyone and to have access to all the markets in Toronto, have decent relationships in London. And so it's always, we always want to be bigger. We always think it's going to be easier at some point, but it's so far, it's not always the case. But I agree with you with the underwriters though. The appetite is one thing, and from years to years, it's kind of but what I like to hear, and some, I think, did a pretty good job about that, it's what have you written lately? What do you have success writing? You can tell me your appetite is, okay, we all know, metal workers. And then at some point it was food. Now it's not food anymore. It's this. No. So,
and every insurer loves a metal worker
no,
for
exactly,
the property.
And it's been there, And you look at appetites, and you look at 3 years ago, it was food processing. Then after 3 years, it was decline. And then it was commercial real estate, and now it's retail. But what do you write? The last 10 accounts, you bind it. What was it? Then you really, kind of focus on these.
And this is a question you would ask the underwriters?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what I want to know. What do you write? What have you been writing in the last month?
Oh, interesting.
And then it's much easier for me to go see a prospect or look at my book and know, like, okay, they just wrote one. Because appetite, it's not always that precise, But you're right that you need to entertain those relationships and also put yourself in their shoes. Like, to be a good underwriter, you have to be curious. I think that's number one. But also, I think you need empathy. Put yourself in your broker's shoes. Same thing for a broker. I think that's number one quality. I'm always telling everyone, if you have empathy, you're putting yourself in your prospect shoes or your client's shoes or in the underwriter's shoes. So then you know what to address. What do they need? What's the angle? What do they need to be comfortable to be able to present the account to their bosses, to their reinsurer? So I think it's much easier when you really put yourself there instead of just thinking about what's your angle? Are you gonna sell? What's the points? That's my 2 cents.
What do you do when? Okay, so let's take an example. Let's say you're going up. Would you say Ostiguy Gendron? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a mid-market to large market, or more mid-market, would you say, for you guys that you focus on?
Yeah, I think everyone has a different definition of mid-market.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
But I would say that we're specialized. Yeah, so mid-market and specialty lines.
Okay,
that's our focus.
So when you're going in, you're trying to get a new piece of business. You're going, okay, I think I have a good chance. I have a good relationship with the controller at company XYZ. I'm going to go in there. And then you find out that the insurance broker they're with, let's say it's going to be a good competitor of yours. So they have access to markets as well. The part, I guess what I'm getting at, I'm not as experienced as you guys are for Ostiguy Gendron when it comes to closing these accounts. Always in the back of my head. So let's say, for example, I'm going into an account and I know that the broker that the client is currently with has access to all the same markets that I have access to. How do I close that account? Because my worry is always, okay, well, I'm going to go in. So let's say that the policy's with Intact, just example. And then, or even let's say Aviva, okay? So I'm going to go in and go, okay, they're with Aviva right now. I'm going to go in, I'm going to quote this. I'm going to quote it with Intact. There's a really good chance that broker also has access to Intact. Like, what am I supposed to do there to get that sale? I know there's no way around it, but like, do you have any tips for stuff like that? Situations like that, I guess you could say?
I think we all have our own style. And I think we have to read the client and find what's the pain point, I would say. Why are you there in the first place? If he's meeting with you, is it a service-wise? Is it because at the end of the day, there's so few markets left that to just go head-to-head and just quoting accounts, especially now with the hardening market. I mean, it's pretty obvious that there's more appetite now than 3 years ago. I think we're in a better place, but still, so I think it's really to position yourself and try to get the account and get the BOR on all the markets or the existing policy, and then do the work and look at how is it structured? Is there, what's the retention? What can you bring? What's your added value?
But I guess that leads me to my next question. How do you get that BOR because if I'm the client, I'm going to go, well, why should I trust you? I mean, you're telling me the exact same thing that my insurance broker told me 5 years ago. Yeah. Why should I trust you? Why should I sign this paper to give you access and go do the shopping for me?
Well, if we had all the answers, I mean, we would get all the accounts. But yeah. I think that if you do a good presentation and you're able to show that you have the expertise and you know what you're talking about, then if he switches to you, can he be comfortable that you won't do worse than what he has now? Yeah, I think so. If you can show your credentials and your referrals and what you're doing. And so what is there for him to lose? You might do better. And if you're not able to do better, well, I mean, if he's comfortable that you have the expertise and you can deliver good service, then he has nothing to lose to try you. And then you get to prove if you're worthy of the account or not. So I think that's an angle. But at the end of the day, it's really expertise. If you can bring in, referrals, but I would say more introductions, because a referral is a referral. But if you really get an introduction from an existing client or someone who knows the industry, or like for us, that's why, of course, we want to grow, but the idea behind is really to be relevant for the clients and for our markets. That's why for us, we've decided it was natural to focus more on niches, because the added value for a client that owns a fleet of 150 trucks and goes to the US, or someone who has, 10 helicopters, or is manufacturing, animal feeds or stuff like that, the added value as a broker to have the expertise, know the markets, know how you need to present the account, or it's easier to show than when it comes to personal lines, for instance, where it's becoming more of a commodity.
It's commoditized. Yeah.
So if it's a commodity, then, I mean, some brokers are doing a great job, but I think that you need scale and you need to manage like call centers and really,
it's a different game.
It's a different game.
It's a different game. Yeah.
If you still need, and you still need to prove your added value. So for us, the value added it's easier, makes more sense when it comes to larger commercial or specialty lines. So.
What I find really interesting, and I was listening very carefully to everything you were just saying there, you did not mention the word price once.
Yeah.
Which I find very interesting. And so you're going into these accounts and look, price comes into the factor. If you're double the price of what the guy's paying, you're not going to get the account. But it's interesting. All you said was value added, expertise, experience. That's very interesting. And it's not, because I think when you get to a certain level of, look, if it's a real estate, if it's a piece of real estate, then it's a $5,000, you're paying $5,000 a year for your rental property. It's a commodity as well. You can call Desjardins, you can call Intact, you can call some of them shop every year. If you want to switch for $500, just switch for $500, because anyone can write that risk, that piece of business, right? Yeah. When it comes to actually going in and giving an added value, not everyone can do that. We're trying to get to that point now. So we're at the point where like at KBD, the personal line side is predominantly call center. We're actually but we're not moving away, but we're also adding like a VIP. We hired some good people over from another brokerage not too long ago. So we're going after that market there. And then on the commercial insurance side, I admire what you guys are doing a lot, because we have a good amount of expertise. I'm hands-on quite a bit on some accounts, but we don't have expertise like you guys. And so I'm always interested, and I like picking the brains for people like you. You guys have had success in this space for going after commercial accounts. Have you guys had a lot of growth on the commercial insurance side for, you guys have been growing every year for like multiple percentages, correct?
Yeah, so when we did the management buyout in 2015, we were 40 employees, so writing roughly 35 million of business. So
and still predominantly commercial.
Yeah, still 90% commercial.
Okay. Yep.
And we ended the year at 115 million.
That was organic?
No, it wasn't.
Okay,
so
okay.
we went through 7 or 8 acquisitions.
Jeez.
With organic growth as well.
Yeah.
And the market also kind of helped. So even though we're growing and we're happy about our growth, but when you look at the countdown, we're not moving ranks, right? We're still 10, 12. If you look just commercial, maybe a bit higher, but still everyone's growing.
Yeah.
Everyone's growing.
There's a lot of consolidation.
Yes, a lot. So it's tough to kind of, take more market shares as you go.
How do you guys, I've always been curious about this, and I know there's different ways. So to have 7 or 8 acquisitions, that was in a year?
No, it's in since 2015.
Okay, that's still a good amount of acquisitions, though. 7 or 8.
But some were smaller, some were bigger.
Still one a year, though. It's like it's not nothing.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're aiming to do at least 2 a year.
What's your, without giving away the secrets, and I'm not asking for the secret recipe, but do you guys, is it as simple as just kind of keeping in touch with other brokers and stuff like that, and then whenever they're ready, say, hey, by the way, if ever you're interested, let me know. We're an aggressive broker. We're trying to grow. If you're ready to retire, give me a call. Is it as simple as that?
I think the market is so competitive now that it's a mix of everything. So a couple of years ago, some brokers would partner with insurer for the purpose of making acquisition. So they would just wait up and they're saying, well, you're going to feed me. You guys are going to feed me. Whether it was AXA or Intac or... But at some point, there's so many brokers now that are part of these networks. And then you add all the consolidator, PE-backed, and all the different options. The direct writers, cooperators did a couple of these also. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
In Quebec?
Yeah, in Quebec.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, did a couple of deals.
Interesting.
So when you put all of this together, you cannot just sit there and wait. And more and more also people are relying on M&A advisors that didn't really exist a couple of years ago. Now we have a couple of firms, even in Quebec, mainly 2, I would say, that are more active.
I had one that called me, same thing. Hey, you ever interested in buying? I said, yeah, sure.
So if you put together, I mean, the referrals you can get from the insurers, if you're working with an M&A advisor, even accounting firms, I mean, KPMG has a practice now, others do also. And then, keep your network alive. So that's why I was always in touch. And that's why also we like to, entertain relationships and conversation in the industry, because you never know what's going to happen. And then, kind of, do your own mapping of, who would be interesting for you. Do they have a succession plan or not? How old are they? And then you get some kind of mapping, and then you can, keep in touch. And then sometimes it could be a partnership, could be an equity deal, it could be a sale. There's many options, but the market now is just so aggressive and so active that you really have to be out there and find the perfect fit. But again, we say find the perfect fit. But if you wait for like that perfect opportunity that really fits and the values are aligned, and you might never do a deal. So, you have to also be flexible and open to course. Kind of
course.
So I think we're pretty good at finding ways to make deals happen so that it's really a win-win. Because for us, when you close the deal, it's not the end of the journey. On the contrary, it's the starting line.
Yeah.
So that's where it starts.
Yeah.
And also all deals are different, obviously. But when you make a deal and you want the owners to stay on board, then you better make sure that you get along and that the transaction went well, right?
From what I've heard, and I've never experienced this, from what I've heard, it's very common where when one broker acquires another broker and the owners stay on, that they will butt heads. That's what I've heard. I've heard also cases where it worked really well, but I've heard more cases where it did not work well.
Yeah, I think it all depends where they are, in their heads and how they see things. And a good example is Jean-Paul Gauthier. So Jean-Paul Gauthier, who sadly is not longer with us. He passed away last year. He was such a gentleman. And he told me, you know what, Max? because it's Ostiguy Gendron. I'm Maxime Poulin, so I don't have any. But for him, I had to go through the thought process that I'm not selling my name, I'm not selling myself, I'm selling my company. When your company is your name, then there's kind of it's very emotional. I would say that through all the transaction, all the signings we did, not once wasn't the seller emotional about selling. So it's really, it depends. And for us, we always said that we think about growth and we want to make deals, and we want to make deals in a smart way. We're not there for the ego. So even when we did the Ostiguy Gendron, we signed a deal, transaction is done. We go back to the office the next week, and then we see Pierre Ostiguy and Daniel Gendron, they were packing their stuff, boxes. We're like, what are you guys doing? They're like, well, we're leaving you their office. Because that's one thing. Often, there's or even the father selling to the son, but he keeps the CEO's office, in the corner. They're like,
oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So we're guys, he's like, no, us, we sold. We're good. We're gonna go sit there, and you guys take the offices. But for us, it was like, it was never an issue. An office, we don't care about who's getting the office. But for some people, it's still important, So I think that
is a nice gesture.
Yeah, of course. I think it says a lot. It shows a lot. So when you put the ego aside, a lot more things are getting done. That's for sure.
I think that's you could say that about life.
Yeah, no, yeah, obviously, yeah.
When you put the ego aside in relationships and business and friendships, I would definitely agree with that. That's a good statement. When you've had these acquisitions, so 7 or 8 over the last 8 years, in terms of, did I say integrations or acquisitions? I think I said integrations. But anyways, these acquisitions you guys have done. Yeah. How was the integration process like? Because you mentioned one thing, so you'll buy out a brokerage, and then that's just the beginning. Because now you have to figure, okay, how is this going to work? How are the new employees? How are they going to adapt to our culture? How are they going to adapt to the way that we do things? Is there going to be a lot of pushback from the way that we do things? What were some of the good things that you guys did? Because clearly you're having success. You've had good growth. You're continuing to have growth. What were some of the successes you guys had in terms of integrating these acquisitions into the Ostiguy Gendron culture?
Well, to be very honest, it's a big learning curve, and we're still learning, and it didn't went that smooth all the time. So now we have a team who's much more prepared and seasoned in that way, and they know what's coming. So I would say that one thing is to really make sure that your team is aware and on board. If you want to grow, you want to make sure that even if the deals are not there yet, the mindset is ready. So if you're bringing a deal, you don't want your IT guy to say, well, we don't have enough licenses. Well, I don't care. The deal is happening. Oh, the server is not big enough. Yeah, but you have to be prepared. HR, so everything, they all need to be ready and have the mindset of growing. Because when it's coming, sometimes it's so they have to be part of it. So I think that's one key of the success. The other,
be prepared
and have the mindset of growing.
Okay.
So that when you think about, when you're planning your investments and your next year's coming up, or even our CFO, we told her, like, talk to the bank now and make sure that if a deal is happening, that we're okay.
We're good to go.
Yeah, we're good to go. And if they need anything else, we need to. So, but at least you're kind of prepared. Of course, there's always things to work out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And the other challenge for us, anyways, was that when you buy expertise, right? When you buy an office that's specialized in aviation insurance, or in trucking insurance, or in construction, or in corporate lines, the synergies are not on the bottom line, because what you're buying, it's the staff, it's the expertise, it's the name, it's the people, it's the experience, so it's not like we can just cut cost, lay people go. So most of the time we have to keep the office because it's strategic to employees or some markets, and so it's an additional challenge because financially you need to make it work and it's not just by cutting people, because it's just a book of personal lines, and then you can just operate with less staff, and So you have to be creative and look at, again, what's the added value? Can I leverage my relationship with one market to be able to write more business in commercial, for instance? Is it going to affect my CPC? So that was one challenge also about the integration or the deals. And obviously, when you buy expertise, people, they're experts in their fields. So they're going to tell you, yeah, Curtis, you don't understand. You know, us, it's done that way. That's our business. It's done that way. Okay. And then, yeah, but you don't know. It's not commercial. It's different. We're different. And when you look into it, yeah, sometimes it's different. There's particularities, but it's insurance at the end of the day. So all the billing is done, all the invoicing is done, all the certificates, everything that's processed, the operations. Sometimes you need to integrate, because otherwise you won't have like 5 divisions working on their own and with different processes. But at the same time, you need to respect the fact that, yes, they do have some differences. It's not the same thing to service a trucking account, then a marine account, then a real estate account. So you have to be sensitive to the differences, but again, find a way to operate everything together in a way that makes sense.
Does it ever cross your mind? Let's say, for example, you're going to go buy, okay, let's take Duluth Taylor. You guys bought them. So Dave Taylor, I'm buddies with his grandsons. Yeah. Trevor Colton, I've known him for years.
The goalie?
No, it's Scotty. Not Scotty, that's Sean.
Okay.
And then Trevor, he was my roommate for 3 years. We lived downtown together. That was fun back in the day. Yeah. But okay, so I'm just going to use this as an example. So yeah. I know that Dave Taylor, he was very, very, I think, is he still there, or is he done? He's done.
He's still there. He's still calling. We still see him once in a while, but he's retired. Okay. But he's always going to be there.
To keep himself busy.
Yeah, okay. He's always going to be there.
My question is, so let's just say, and I'm just taking this because it's an example. So I know that he was an aviation specialist. When you're buying a book of business, because you just mentioned you're buying the talent. It's not only the book of business, of course, that's important. You're buying the talent, the employees that are there, or the owners that are there. You want that expertise in-house. Does it cross your mind? Because this is this is the thought that I would have. If I was going to buy that, I'm going to go, okay, it's a little bit, yes, if this works out, it's going to be excellent. It's going to work. It's going to make money for everyone. But if it doesn't, it's high risk in the sense that if this broker ends up leaving, and now that expertise is gone, and now you have a book of business, like, we don't have this expertise to service this. Does that cross your mind? And if it does, how do you go about it?
No, there's a risk, that's for sure. We were lucky so far in the sense that it was teams, right? So, Dave is such a renowned expert and specialist, but he had his right-hand guy, Garrett, who's been with us for a while, and then other parts of the team. And so far, we're always able to bring in some more people, either from Ostiguy Gendron or a new hire. And then you mix everything together, and kind of, if this, the energy is good and the vibe is good, then it becomes more fluid, and then it works out. But there's always a risk, but there's a way also to address that. You can attach them with different deals. There's, every deal is different, but there's ways to work this around and so get them more involved.
You put hedges in place.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. As any good business owner would.
Otherwise, because you're right, otherwise it's a risk, because if everything is based on that, and if they leave,
screwed.
And at the end of the day, we all have, non-competes and stuff, but you know what it's worth. If you look at the decisions and all, I think it's pretty clear that you better keep your staff happy and keep them on board. It's much easier than trying to fight something out.
Have you ever had, every big commercial insurance broker has said this, I've never experienced it yet. Hopefully I never have to experience it, but I probably will have to experience it one day. When brokers leave, because obviously it's a relationship-based business, and when they leave, there's a non-compete in place, but I think everyone knows how that works. They're still going to take a bit of the business along with that. What's the etiquette? Because there are, without naming names, there's brokers out there that basically they'll recruit talent, and then they'll say, okay, go after all your business. Don't worry about it. We have a team of lawyers here, and we'll just pay your lawyer fees, which is like how, because if you want to be honorable in the profession, because there's some brokerages that out of principle will not do that. And there's some brokers that don't care and they will do that. So I guess I don't really have a question here. It's I'm trying to do it without rustling any feathers.
No, I know.
I think you know what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, so, well, I think at some point, if you're growing a bit in the market space, I mean, it's not that big, right? So yes, you might run into some people or accounts or gray areas. Or for us, I mean, I'm still in the business for the next 25 years, right? So I'm not going to lose my name or having entertaining bad relationships with people that I might, make deals with at some point. So what's in it for us? At the end of the day, I think we have a good reputation, and it's important for us. So it did happen, and it wasn't necessarily because we wanted to, but more often than others, what we did is pick up the phone. And if someone from your team is coming to us for some reason, and something's happening, or a client is moving or wants to move, or it's much easier than just pick up the phone, call you and say, you know what, Curtis, this is what's happening. Can we just make a deal? I don't want to, because it's not the lawyers, yes, but someone has to talk to these lawyers, right? Mm-hmm. So it's such a waste of time and resources and
money
and money. It's not just the money though. Yeah. It's so much time. It's so much time that you spend there that you're not spending on more acquisition, growth, being with your team, being with prospect, with your clients. It's a total waste of time.
It's a distraction, is what you're saying.
It is. So we even at some points we even make deals where we technically, you look at contracts and we're like, we don't have to pay anything. It is what it is, and it's pretty clear. But, just for the sake of making things right, we always think about what's right. What should we do? What would be the right thing to do? And then go from there, because at some point it's a waste. And what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? I mean, it's such a small industry. Some people still have regrets that how they left some places, and they ended up back with the same boss a couple of months after, right? So no, we try to stay away, obviously, but when it happens, it's better, I think, to pick up the phone and address it. Just like I know that many competitors are doing the same thing, and so I would expect to be treated the same way. I guess that's the way to go.
I noticed on the website, and I don't know too much about this. So you guys have an office in Toronto and you have an office in Winnipeg as well. Do you have a big presence in those provinces, or?
Honestly, it's mostly aviation focused. So that came from the Duluth Taylor acquisition. Okay. So it was existing.
How many employees were they, Duluth Taylor?
It's a good question. When we did the acquisition, I would say around 20, probably.
Oh, wow. I thought there were like 5.
No.
Okay, it's a good size.
Yeah, so they had a couple, so in Toronto, Winnipeg, and in Montreal.
Okay.
So, around 20, I would say. Yeah.
And are you trying to go after business in Toronto as well, or?
We are. In aviation, most of our growth came from outside of Quebec. That's the thing with niches also, is that if you're becoming whether it's trade credit or marine or aviation, or if let's say you're the top 5 in Quebec, then at some point it becomes more difficult to kind of generate some growth.
Yes.
So if you go outside of Quebec, then it becomes the market is quite bigger. So for us, we had good success doing that. So that was the idea. The idea wasn't to be outside of Quebec just to add a new address on our business card. We were already licensed in all provinces. I'm the Rebo principal for Ontario.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So but we said, at some point, if it makes sense, we'll do it. And it came through the acquisition. And then we hired some more people though. In Toronto, we have another producer there that just joined, and we're talking.
And they're going after aviation insurance.
Yeah, mostly. Okay. We had also one cyber guy in Toronto. It's just that there's opportunities there, and to be there, because it's always, I find that getting outside of Quebec, it's always the chicken or the eggs. If you want to grow business, you need markets. to have markets,
you need business.
Then they're like, well, I need a commitment of business. I need this and this and this. And often it's the same company you're dealing with in Quebec, but they don't have like a national contract or agreement. So you have to go region by region, and then they don't really talk to each other.
I'm living through it right now.
And then it's starting from scratch. It's like they never heard of you.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so the VP of Ontario, the VP of the Western region, and it becomes easier to just do larger accounts, because if you deal with Zurich, you deal with Zurich.
Yeah.
Right? If you
same
deal
thing
with
Chubb,
CNH,
same thing with Travelers.
they don't bother.
Yeah.
But all the regular markets, or even the MGAs, it's easy to do business with them across Canada if they're licensed in Quebec, obviously. But it's much easier. But all the regular markets, it's like starting from scratch.
I know.
You have to fill in the application with the business development guy, and then do this, and how much business you're going to produce year 1, 2, 3, and then it's, if you don't get that, then you get smaller accounts, and then you're like, okay, it's not MG business, it's not like Zurich business. Where am I going to place that?
That's what we're doing. And so like recently, starting last week, we have an office in Ottawa, and we're having success. It's slow growth, but for the past 2 weeks, and I'll be doing this for the next couple of months, I go there Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and it's my colleague Claudia that's there. We go there, we do.
You drive there? You go there?
No, I take the train. Beautiful. I take the Via Rail train. Yeah. Very nice. Yesterday, I did 2 hours of cold calling. Day before, I did 2 hours I literally go there, I cold call, work on a few other things, because we got to get this business off the ground.
Yeah.
And like, we're doing the traditional advertising. But if you sit there, even with marketing, if you sit there and you're the new kid on the block and you wait for calls to come to you, it's not going to work. You got to go out and get the business. And that's another issue with going. This is why I want to ask you that question, because we're going through that right now. We're trying to get into a new market. Well, we are present in Ontario, but it's tough to grow. It's like starting a new business. And I guess it's like living in la land if you're a broker and you think you're going to find a producer who's going to bring in $500,000 of new business in the first year. They're very, very, very difficult to find. And if they exist, I promise you they're very well taken care of wherever they are. Yeah. Or if they're that talented, they're going to have their own business. So it's...
but that's why I don't have the answer, but I think that even though it's very difficult to find opportunities to make acquisitions there, I think that an acquisition, to at least start with some kind of platform, a bit of revenues, some contracts, a bit of, even if it's a small thing, at least you have a platform that you can grow. Otherwise, it's like, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
And, but again, if you're not there, how do you hear about that producer's unhappy and couldn't move on with the team? Yeah. So do you go to IBAO every year? You have to be out there. You have to be in the market to kind of know what's going on.
To get a feel.
And because otherwise, are you going to compete? Are you going to introduce yourself? Yes. Okay, I'm Curtis. I'm Max from Quebec. I want to grow in Ontario. Okay, so unless it's a very interesting deal, are you going to get that producer? Because we also had an office in Ottawa for a while. Didn't work out. And we had a partner there, but I don't think we paid enough attention, because Ottawa, it's kind of, that's why I was asking you if you go, because it's a bit tricky, because it's Ottawa, it's not that far. Okay, perfect. So we'll go once a month. Okay, fine. And then you're like, oh, I skipped that month. I skip another month. It's like, oh no, but it's not that far. Yeah, it's not that far, but it's still, it's 3 hours in your day. You don't go, and compared to Toronto, because Toronto, you book your flight. No, but you book your flight.
Oh, the flight, yeah.
So the flight is booked. Yeah. You know that in 2 weeks I'm going to Toronto. My flight is booked. I'm going for sure.
That's why I take the train.
You book it.
Exactly. So I book the train.
Maybe I should have done that maybe for a while.
Yeah.
But,
so I take the train Tuesday morning. I do 6:20 in the morning. So I get there. I'm in the office by 8:30. And then I sleep there that night, wake up. And a lot of time, it's great. And it made me feel really good, because I had this realization the other day. I go, okay, if I'm not there like 2 days a week working, and not just selling, getting a feel for the environment, getting a feel for going out, going to see people, having lunches with people. I have friends that live in Ottawa, and I want to expand that network that's there. If you're not doing that, I don't think it will work. But it was really encouraging for me yesterday, and Claudia, so that's my colleague who's running the office there, and she goes, it's so motivating for you to be here. And I can understand where she's coming from. Think about it. She's by herself in an office. You do that for 2-3 months and you're by yourself, you're not working with anyone face to face. It's like you have to be there. We're all humans at the end of the day. They need to have that motivation. But everything you're saying right now, it actually makes me feel a little bit better, because I'm thinking in my head, shit, is KBD doing something wrong here? Because like, man, it's tough to grow. Like really
it's
tough.
That's why also I really like the GTA market, because there's the business opportunity, but there's also all the markets there, all our relationships there. So we do a lot of business through underwriters there. So if you have an office there, it's also an excuse to be, or not just an excuse, but it's also a tool to be closer to these markets. Like Ottawa, I like the Ottawa region. There's a lot of good business to be done there. Financially, I mean, it's nice. The government, there's a lot of tech business. There's a lot, and and big brokers have good offices there. But Toronto it's kind of both. So we have the business side that we can develop, but there's also the proximity to our markets there.
To the underwriters.
Yeah. So for us, it made a bit more sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
What's I had a question and I completely forgot my question. Okay, so one of the things that you just mentioned would be to acquire a broker, and brokers right now, interesting, just to talk about like multiples. I saw from I forget the company that sent it over to me, but in terms of like just what multiples are going for, I saw it was between 8 and 16 times EBITDA, depending on, personal lines, commercial lines, what's the big variation. And sometimes as high as, I think I saw 5.5 times the commission revenue. This is in Ontario. Do you think the interest rates, like from what you guys are seeing right now, and I know every deal is different, so I'm not saying this is like, my question is basically, do you see the multiples coming down anytime in the near future? I mean, it's not a secret. Everyone in the insurance industry knows multiples are high compared to 25 years ago. Of course, they're very, very, very high. Do you see with the new interest rate environment that we're coming into, do you think those multiples are going to come down? Or because there's such a demand and a short supply of brokers to buy, do you think the multiples are going to stay stagnant? Do you think it's going to remain this expensive to buy insurance brokerages?
Well, I think for once, just the fact that we're talking about EBITDA multiple compared to commission multiple is already a big improvement in our industry. I mean, you can see that we're getting much more sophisticated when it comes to M&A. I think that's a good thing. And then the effect of the interest rate. So my thought was that at some point it would have an effect, right? Because people are leveraging a lot, and of course it's going to have an impact. But I was also reading an article, and I was talking to some people, and if you combine the fact that the supply is pretty short, that the risk to invest in our business is 0 to none. I mean, it's very low. It's so low that it still makes sense for funds or investors to keep putting money in their business. And then the access to capital. There's so much capital available right now in our industry through all these funds or insurers or even banks, getting more involved now, that I don't see it. It might have an impact, but I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact as long as the returns are still high and as long as the capital is there. And not just there, but they need to deploy it. I mean, all these private equity that came in the market, like in the past 3 years, they have 3, 4, 5 years left before they want an exit? Or they go into that, continuation fund stuff, So in the next 3 to 5 years, a lot's going to be going on. You're going to get exit. You're going to get new players, not just on the retail side. Some NGAs are PE-backed also. We'll see what happens on the insurer side because the consolidation is not done either there. Especially now that they all posted great results. If you're an insurer, especially foreign-owned, and you post great results, it's amazing. But you're also becoming a very valuable asset if someone wants to leverage that to invest in Asia and Europe or elsewhere. I think it's my AXA past that's talking now. But AXA Canada was overperforming the group. And at some point, it became pretty interesting to monetize that for the head office. So
what happened there? Because like AXA's before my time. I came in just when Intact became Intact. Because Intact was AXA before, right?
AXA was AXA and Intact was ING.
And then what happened?
In 2011, AXA Canada was sold. May 2011, it was sold to Intact.
Okay.
AXA Canada was sold.
Can you talk about this just a little bit? Because
there's not much to say. I think more other people will have probably more to say. But basically, AXA Canada was performing very well, and at the time, the AXA Group, which was I think 220 employees worldwide, wanted to invest more in emerging markets. And it was costing a lot of money, especially in Asia or Brazil, or so that's why we're kind of a victim of our success, you know. So we became an asset that was worth a lot, and I think that and now through Intact, and then Intact continued with Jeffco after Guarantee, RSA, and became the large company they are today. But that's the story. So are we gonna see this happening again? Maybe. I think that the returns now are more decent, but still, you know, there's some. So we'll see that. I think there's still more consolidation to be made on the insurer side as well. The market is still fragmented. So we'll see. So I think it's a mix of everything. So I'm sure the interest rates are gonna have an impact. But I mean, that capital needs to be invested, and I think that deals are maybe it's gonna make some deals more, not difficult, but maybe we'll have to be more creative, and we'll see. And I think we're not all at the same level either. I think when we look at what's going on now, I think some of these players, because you look at, you know, the Hub, Navacord, Cinex, Westland, NFP, Gallagher. I'm probably forgetting some now. BrokerLink, or some of them are more. They're almost like M&A companies. I mean, we're not we're operators, right?
Yeah.
What we do all day is insurance.
Yeah.
Ask me what I do for a living. I'm an insurance broker.
Yeah.
Some of these guys, they're not insurance brokers.
Yeah,
they're
I agree.
They're M&A specialists, and they're very good at raising capital.
Yeah.
But at some point, with the amounts that are paid now, they're gonna need to operate these business in a way that makes sense financially. So it might not be them. Maybe it's gonna be in 3-5 years, other people are gonna take over and do so. But I think there's a difference between some groups that really operate brokerages and want to build that large Canadian success story of brokerage, and some are kind of, I think, scaling really fast, and then we'll see what happens, you know. So I think we're not all on the same page on that.
What do you think is going to happen once the private equity, because, you know, you're absolutely right. What's happening in the environment right now is the, you know, private equity is coming in, some insurance companies as well. There's some big players. They're coming in, they're deploying their capital. They're buying up a bunch of, Westland's a perfect example. They're pretty open about it. Blackstone gave them, I think, $1.2 billion. Yep. And so they're just buying and buying and buying. In 5 years, because private equity, typically speaking, they're going to come in, they make their money, they bounce. They're out of there. What do you think is going to happen when they finally take their exit?
I think they're probably going to replace. I think, you know, it's, for us, it looks like, I think they're much more active now, but it's not new that, I was reading at some point that the Bronfman family in the 80s had a fund specialized in damage insurance brokerage firm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The Bronfmans, really?
Yeah. So they were investing back in the 80s. So at some point, of course, the tech companies and everything looks, you know, way better, and the returns were much higher. But it's like now the absence of risk in our business, combined to the fact that we finally can show that there's a lot of money to be made also. Mm-hmm. I think that everything combined is going to make the market still very attractive for investors and for funds.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah, if you're making a bigger return working or purchasing insurance brokers, why would you deploy the capital anywhere else? Why would you want to have an exit if you're getting a 20-25% return every year?
And 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would mention EBITDA to a broker, and it was like, what? I'm making money. Yeah, okay. And they were running at 18% EBITDA. Yeah. I think now we're much more sophisticated. I think also just the needs of investing in HR and IT alone kind of put so much pressure that 100% of the deals we've made, and I'm pretty sure the number is very high industry-wise, it's driven by two things, HR and technology.
When you're talking HR, you're talking employees.
Attracting.
By far,
When they're like, I've done that, it's enough. I've been doing that for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. I'm not there anymore. The world is changing way too fast for me. I'm done. I'm selling. The prices are good. And now you're telling me that I need to buy that Epic thing and it's going to cost me how much a month? And it used to cost me that a year.
And I'm not going to understand how it works.
It makes no sense. And then you have these young guys at the office saying, well, we need to do it. And you're like, well, I'm pretty happy with what's going on. And I want a bigger boat and I want a cottage. And then the priorities kind of are not aligned anymore, which is totally fine because in 20 years, I'll want a bigger boat and a larger cottage.
The circle of life.
Exactly. So, but that creates also, when it's done properly, a great story of succession. At some point, you just have to realize, I'm not there anymore and you guys take over and handle. I remember I was at the office at like 6 p.m. with my partner, Jean-Philippe. And we're talking about HR issues, and the guys that Pierre and Danielle, they were, I don't know where they were still there, but they were coming out and looking at us in the office, and they're like, well, it's up to you guys. We're going home now. For them, it was like, it's done, and now it's up to you guys. So, and it's the right way to do so, I think, and that's where we're in an age now. It's okay to put time and handle these issues, and at some point. Some people are going to help you do it also. Yeah,
no, it's funny. Sometimes too, like my dad, we're working out a plan right now. He's going to be completely out of the picture very, very, very soon. And, sometimes I'll call him up, 5:36, 6:37 and stuff like that. And he'll chuckle because he remembers back in the day when he used to have to go through the same thing. Yeah, he's like, I don't miss doing that, but he'll just laugh.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think we had it good. I think you already had a name in the industry. Us were, like I said, at the last Christmas party, or was it 2 years ago? Yeah, for the 30th anniversary. I mean, we were repreneurs, but we were never founders. There were only 2 founders of Ostiguy Gendron. That's never going to change. So we're lucky enough. Yes, we want to take it to another level, and we started doing that. But still, we started with something. We didn't start it from scratch. I have friends that started from scratch in the industry, and wow.
Are they still around?
Yes, they are, and they have success, and they're happy. They're making money. And
they started at zero?
Yeah.
Wow. Good for them.
But so much respect for that, because I would never have the energy and the drive to do that. To take something and bring it elsewhere, that I find very exciting. It's a great challenge. But to really start something, a lot of respect for people who did that. And there's a generation of all the offices now. A lot of them sold, but still, I mean, all these guys, they all started from scratch and build great organizations.
Yeah. Think about it. For my grandfather who started this business, and they had, because back in the day, you would have, there were so many small little insurance brokers. There'd be 1 or 2 people. They were everywhere. They'd be working out of their house. Yeah. When he started, so he came over from Scotland, worked at Liberty Mutual, and then he left Liberty Mutual, started his own personal lines, home and car insurance. From zero, he had 7 kids to feed. He would grab the phone book and he would cold call all day. And he had one of the sons come and work for him for free. He's like, I can't pay you, but I need your help. Then he had the daughter come. Then my dad ended up coming. So there were 3 kids, but they basically almost worked for free at the beginning. Yeah. And he said, guys, I need you to do this. And just, I totally agree. You got to tip your hat off to these guys, because it takes a lot of grit, determination, rejection.
Definitely.
And imagine back then, today, you can cold call someone and do a quote over the phone for your home and car insurance in 15 minutes. You can issue the policy right there. Back then, they had to come by. They had to give you the check. You had to send it off by mail to the insurance company. You had to, the process was way, way, way longer than what it is today. Yeah, definitely. I don't know how they did it back then. For Ostiguy Gendron right now, so you guys are in a position, you're trying to grow. You seem like a competitive guy. You have that competitive spirit in you. Are you guys prioritizing more the M&A strategy or more the organic growth strategy, or you'll take whatever can come your way?
No, I think it's not whatever comes the way. I think it's planned, but it's both ways. I mean, we really want to push to bring back that development kind of hustling energy and vibe, and work towards generating that momentum to bring in new business. Because if you only make acquisition and you don't bring in new business, then it's useless. You're done. For us, acquisition is not. We don't want to, like I was saying before, we don't want to grow just to be big. For us, it makes no sense. We want to grow to stay pertinent, relevant, and to have resources to invest in people and in technology to make our people better or more comfortable and happier. So it's a mix of both. So we need that new business. I think there's still good opportunities in the market. The market's going to keep growing. Especially on the commercial side. I was looking at the numbers. I think in Quebec now we're around at 7.5 billion of business commercial wise, and by 2030 they're expecting that number to reach 13 billion.
How's that?
Claims. Because if you look at the GDP, it's not correlated anymore that much. Now, what's going to drive the market? It's the natural disasters,
cat losses,
inflation, social inflation. So all put together, the market's going to keep growing. So who's going to be part of that? That's yet to be seen. But yeah, so for us, it's both. For us, and an acquisition, it needs to make sense in our plan. Our plan is we still want to focus. I mean, that 90% commercial, 10% personal lines, we don't want that to change. For us, a deal is a way to go get expertise and talent. So if it's just a deal to make a deal, or if it's 100% personal lines, small commercial, and there's no strategy or edge for us, we'll pass on it like we did in the past. So yeah, for us it's a way to scale quicker, because if you only rely on organic growth, it's great, but it's going to take a long time if you want to reach those levels that I think you need to reach into this business to be able to compete. Because you need, I mean, just talent wise, I mean, you need to attract people, train them, not just train them, have them pass their license. You need to train them on how to be good or great brokers.
This is what blows my brain, and maybe I'm missing something in the equation or in the picture, and maybe you have the answer, maybe you don't. BFL. When I see BFL and the fact that I know they've done some acquisitions recently, but let's rewind 10 years ago. To my understanding, I don't think he did any acquisitions up until 10 years ago.
Very small.
How the hell did this guy, I tip my hat off to Barry Lorenzetti. How the hell did this guy grow to that magnitude through organic growth? I keep trying to figure it out. I'm like, how did this guy do this? Maybe you don't have the answer, but it's like...
No, but it's not that I don't have the answer. I think they have a model, and I think they're sticking to it, and it's proven that it's very successful on attracting people and keeping their people and then getting the business. I think their model is... and again, Lisa Giannoni, their new appointed president, was saying the same thing recently on the Canadian Underwriter.
I think I read that, yeah.
And for them, even if Lacaisse is involved now, my understanding is that they're not aiming towards large acquisition as of now. Their model is really attracting talent.
They want talent acquisition.
And that talent's going to generate business. So I think they have a good thing going on, and good for them, and yeah, good for Barry and the younger team there also, the Vena brothers, Fred Pelez. I mean, they have a good thing going on. They have their model, and good for them.
To each their own.
Yeah.
What's one of the things, because this is one of the discussions I was having with another insurance broker, one of my good buddies, and what he said was, he was having difficulty on the commercial side. He was having difficulty motivating his employees, his producers, to go out and get more business. And especially over the past 2 or 3 years with this hard market, premiums have gone up drastically, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100% in some cases. And he made a really good point. He said, he goes, it's very difficult for me to motivate a producer to go out and sell business when the book he's sitting on just by going through renewals, and he basically increases his volume by 30, 40%. So it's very, very, very difficult for me to motivate him to go out and get more on top of that. What do you guys do to try and motivate the producers? Or is it always just basically, and I think it's like this in any company, you usually have, it's a very small number of people to drive the growth. And every company, not just insurance, that's what just the reality is. Are there any tricks that you guys are doing? I'm sure you lean on a couple. You're probably one of the producers that brings in a lot of business. I'm sure there's a couple of other guys. What do you guys do this is a very vague question, I guess, but for the producers that you guys lean on, what do you do to motivate them to go and get more business when their volume's growing just through inflation and hard market?
I think it's quite a challenge. We don't have the answer, seriously, honestly. We took over the old business development initiatives, the sales meeting, and to really make sure that people get that it's really a priority for all the partners. I mean, it's not just there's someone taking care of it, or it's us leading the initiatives and the meetings, and eventually we're gonna have people to take over that. But now want to bring this back to us because it's really, for us, it's so important, it's such a focus. And I think that you're leading by example. So if you're bringing in business with everything else that you need to do, there's no excuses for a producer not to bring business, right?
Yep.
And yes, you can rely on the market, but is it still true? I'm not sure. Now, the rates are kind of, I think we can all agree that we're kind of a plateau now.
They're stagnating, yes.
So now the work is being done more on the TIV side. So you still get these 10%, 15, 20%, but it's TIV driven. It's inflation. The rates, I mean, and it's much more on a line of business, line by line scenario by opposition to just an overall portfolio, hardening and kind of panicking and addressing more rates there. So I think now there's more appetite, there's more capacities. There's still, yes, rates increase, but not across the board. Some lines are going down. So I don't, when we made our budget this year, we didn't rely on just the renewals increasing. I think we all gonna need new business to get through it. So, and you're right, but what I love about our industry, it's putting your producers in a meeting with guys that are still so passionate about, I mean, Pierre Ostiguy, for instance, I mean, he sold in 2015. He's still at the office every week. You hear him. He's working on deals and his clients and the business, and he's calling me. I want to place this account. We have Mike Bryan, who used to head Marsh for Eastern Canada, who's been with us for a couple of years now. Mike, I mean, he's so passionate. He talks. You can just see the passions involved. I want to make deals. I want to talk to insurers. I want this. When you see these guys in their 60s, still so passionate about that, it's amazing. I mean, if you sit down with them for 1 hour and tell me that you're not gonna be motivated after that,
you're gonna love insurance.
Yeah,
if you sit down
amazing.
With these guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing, and that's just my experience. But there's so many still in the market. There's still a lot of these guys that are sticking around, and not just because they need the money. On the contrary, I mean, it
keeps them busy.
They could be retired, but keeps them busy. But they just have the love and the passion for it still, and I find it's amazing to see. It's very very motivating.
I find if you're not a broker right now that's pushing, that's on the that's proactive as opposed to being reactive. If you're not one of those brokers, I think you're dying a slow death because it's just too competitive right now. You have the M&As, you have people that are aggressive to go out and get new business, and the other part too that's happening, a lot of the baby boomers, we still have a couple guys like the gentleman you just mentioned, but there's a lot of brokers that are retiring. There's a lot of good business that's out there, and a lot of producers are either too shy or frankly too lazy to go out, pick up the phone. And all these things are great. Social media is great. Going to networking events, that's all great. But I still believe at the end of the day, like if you don't pick up the phone and make that call to this person, and you're probably going to have to call them a few times, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I've had to do that sometimes to get the sale. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They're too shy to do that, or it's either shy or lazy.
It's not easy. It's not easy to do. I think that it's one thing to pick up the phone and make cold calls, but there's many ways around. I mean, if you know what are your strengths, and you know that if you're not good at it, it's not going to be, if you're not comfortable, people are going to feel it anyway. So are you comfortable? As long as you find your way to do it and you're successful, then I mean, I think that's the key. But yeah, and I mean, some people are going to retire. You always need a second best friend, and the seeds you're planting now, I mean, you're gonna harvest them in 3 years, 5 years. I mean, every year you need to follow up. You need to call people. You need to, and now people that stopped doing that during COVID, even if you could still, send emails, pick up the phone, and for once, we all had something in common. You could call any single CFO of a company, ask them, how's it going through COVID? Are your employees back at the office? How do you see things going? Before, it's like, okay, what am I going to talk about? There's insurance, their business. But now, for once, everyone was going through the exact same challenge. So if you didn't do it 2 years ago, well, you don't get these leads or these calls now 3 years after or 3 years after. So you have to keep entertaining them.
You mentioned you guys are making a lot of technology investments outside of the CRM or the BMS, as we refer to it, the broker management system, CRM. I don't even know, what does CRM stand for? I don't even know what it stands for. I know it's a
customer relationship
manager. There you go. Outside of that, are you guys making any significant technological investments as an insurance broker?
We're looking at many things. To be honest, my partner JP Martineau, who heads the RCCAQ tech committee, and he's on the steering committee and with Northbridge in Ontario, and he's much more involved on that. I'm more involved on the client, business dev, and insurer side. So I added him and all the old technology side. But yeah, so obviously we're one of the first to go to Epic, which was a big investment for us at the time. We're using chatbots. We're looking at all.
What do you guys use chatbots for?
To help us through managing programs, for instance.
Okay. And chatbots, they're
how we can
client-facing?
operate. Yeah. So how can we operate or use them to again? And technology, it's a way to have our broker do the job they're paid for and they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, now they're doing so many things that, again, go back to, there's no value added for a broker to key in information if you have a chatbot doing it for them, So for us, it's a way to enable our brokers and our employees to be what they're good at and spend their days doing that instead of doing all these other useless things.
That is one thing. What do you think is going to happen with commercial insurance? So commercial insurance, I know you guys are more on like the mid-market and specialty lines. You mentioned that. One pain point for us, because we're doing it predominantly, we do a little bit of mid-market, but it's mostly small business insurance. One pain point for us is the administrative tasks, the administrative work. And it's frankly ridiculous, in my opinion, for where a lot of, and I'm not just going to say single out one insurance company, they're all guilty. And I know they know that they all need to improve on the technology side of things too. But is there anything that you guys are doing? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous for like a renewal for a $2,500 policy, just the amount of steps that need to be done as a commercial insurance broker to renew the policy. It's crazy. And it actually creates a whole other job. We need to hire, we're on the brink, we're gonna have to hire someone to do all of this paperwork. When frankly, I think it should be done by a computer. There's no reason it shouldn't be.
Yeah, when it comes to technology and commercial insurance, I think that the narrative is really towards how do we write new business. We have a portal, a quick quote, we do quotes. But I think that the gain in efficiency, we're going to be much larger on, like you mentioned, the renewals. How do you handle endorsements?
Yes.
How long is the process? Every billing, everything that goes around. It's not writing the new business where you have the most gain. I think it's going to be everything after. How do you handle your clients, the transaction, and on. So I think that there's more improvement. I think people are getting that now. I think we still haven't seen everything that can be done. I think there's also still a bit of pushback from some markets on, do we really want to be compared that easy between? So are we going to use one solution that's going to make it easy for everyone to be comparing quotes and so we're still so I think that's it's moving forward. There's a lot that's being done with the RCCAQ in Quebec or with Applied or with the IBAO or other providers as well. But we'll see. I think our industry, it's pretty obvious that we're behind in that sense, but there's so much going on. Every week I hear about new tools or new solutions so again, I think that at least as we keep the conversation going and look at what's being done elsewhere, I'm hopeful that it's going to be much easier. And we, anyways, just with the salaries alone that we have to pay now for people, it makes no sense to have them do that. It won't work at the end. We won't be profitable. We won't.
And all the money, frankly, all the money. You guys are probably on a cloud-based system as well. We're on a cloud-based system, phone system. Everything's like in the cloud. We have Epic. It's no secret. It's very expensive. So in my head, I'm going, we're already paying an arm and a leg for all of this tech infrastructure. Why isn't this included? What's the question I just had?
And what again, just to your last point. Brokers are all complaining about the lack of tools and technology, but we're all using our BMS to like 50% of what we're supposed to use them. So again, they have all these models. So I remember one broker that actually won an award, and the strategy was just using everything that's available in Epic, for instance. So but there's still work to be done.
I know you guys are predominantly a commercial insurance company, but where do you see, we have quite a bit of personal lines at our office. I know it's probably not your wheelhouse. Where do you see, because I have an opinion on this, where do you see personal lines going? Like, do you see the broker getting cut out in Quebec?
So for us, personal lines, even though let's say it's around 10% of our business, it's still very important, because how are we going to make acquisitions if you don't have a personal lines team?
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Also, because there's a lot of money to be made in personal lines.
Yeah.
Also, because there's a big impact on your CPC also.
Yep.
So if you put all of this together, for us, it's still very important. I think it doesn't have to be that painful to do personal lines. There's a way to do it that it makes sense and it's efficient. For me, anyways, the way we see the future of personal lines is two ways. So you're going to have fully digital operation for your regular business, low touch, there. And then you're going to have your VIPs or whatever you want to call it, but high net worth or that have special needs or need a really holistic 360 approach, or that are really close to your commercial accounts, or that you have a relationship with that you still need to meet and still. So for us, we see it in these two segments. Other than that, I don't think that the regular model is still going to be viable, and I think everyone agrees. Everyone is they're all moving on digital platforms or portal or
my logic is always, as a client, why should they have to call in, wait on hold, and speak to someone just to change their address? The broker doesn't want to take that call because it's a useless call, and people have to do it. The client doesn't want to make that call because they can do it online by themselves. Same thing for changing a credit card information. I know this is all coming, but once they can start to do the small things like that, I think inch by inch. So they'll start, for example, 5% of transactions will be done through a digital platform. Then it's 10, then it's 20, then it's 30. And I think the insurance companies right now, not so much the directs, they'll change whenever they have to, but the companies that work more with brokers, because there's still a lot of brokers that don't like that because they're afraid that they're going to be replaced by a computer on the personal line side. My opinion, I don't care how you feel. I think it's inevitable to happen. Why wouldn't it happen? If you can go to the UK, it's a little bit different. There's aggregators that are very powerful. But I remember I was speaking to one of the underwriters that came in from London. We're having lunch here in Montreal. And he said to me, he goes, "What do you mean you have to call for your car insurance and change it?" I go, "Yeah, what's it like in England?" He goes, "I haven't spoken to anyone in 10 years for my car insurance. It's all done through a computer." So I'm just thinking, a computer, no offense to home and car insurance brokers, and I'm going to get a lot of slack for this. It's going to get automated. I don't see any other way around it, because the other competitors, the insurance companies that don't do that will not be able to keep up with the companies that do. Their overhead will remain too high. They're not going to have a choice.
I think that our competitive advantage as a broker is to offer the choice to the client. If the client wants to not speak to anyone and just go online, that's fine. If he actually wants to have a relationship with someone, because some people still value that, he can.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to give the options. And as a broker, well, we're lucky enough to be able to do these decisions and give the options. I think also that data is going to play a big role in that. I mean, it's still all these questions we're asking to get a quote. That's why I'm always at the office. I'm always telling our commercial producers that they're never good enough to do personal lines. Would you spend 45 minutes live with a client? Okay, asking question, credit score, what's the effect? No, there's no effect. Blah, blah. And then this and how many questions? Your house, the value, it's the CVA, the everything. I mean, you need skills to really be able to do that live on the phone with the client in the portal. When we do commercial, we have conversation about the business, what's going on, what was your last round of golf, and on and on. It's very different. So the more data we're going to have access to, it's going to end up, having 5 questions, and then you get your quote. So it's going to be much easier.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it's the client's going to want the option, and they're going to be the ones to decide. But for sure, I mean, I think nobody's going to argue that it won't go digital.
Yeah, I don't,
much higher level.
I don't see why it wouldn't. And especially once Desjardins really starts to ramp up. I'm pretty sure you can buy tenant insurance online without speaking to anyone. I'm almost positive through the Desjardins portal. Next, I'm sure they'll make the home. I mean, if Desjardins is doing this, the other insurance companies are not really going to have a choice. They're going to have to start offering that.
We'll see. I think from the last numbers I've seen anyways, and I'm not a specialist on that matter, but I think that a lot of people go through the quoting process without talking to someone, but in order to really close the transaction,
they have to.
But they have to now, but they still want to. They still want to be just reassured that before pressing, send, that they're talking to someone. I think
that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I don't really have I think we've covered a lot of things today, Max. Is there anything you want to, anything else you want to bring up?
No, it's all good, man. It's a good conversation. I think we have an amazing business. I think there's a lot going on, and I think that, it's fun to be part of it. And
I agree.
We'll see what's going to go on next in the next couple of years. It's going to change, but it's fun. It's exciting.
It is.
Great business, good. Great people. And
it's nice to have, I'm super happy that you came by today. It's nice to speak to and work with other insurance brokers. Meanwhile, even though we're technically competitors, it's nice to just have conversations like this, and to also have conversations with people that have the same mindset. You guys are trying to grow, we're trying to grow as well. As Warren Buffett always says, there's many different ways that you can get to heaven. There's not one way that you can get up there. We all have our own little tricks, I guess, or the ways that we do business, but it's nice to speak to other people that are also hungry to grow.
Yeah, I think there's the pie is big enough for everyone, and if you don't need to be insecure that someone's going to steal your business. I mean, there's enough business for everyone, and there's no reason why. Yeah, there's no reason why we cannot all get along. I guess.
Well, thank you so much. So once again, this is Maxime from Ostiguy Gendron, commercial insurance broker, personalized insurance broker as well here in Quebec. This is a Freemium Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you guys liked it, feel free to subscribe or share it with a friend. And Max, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.